Oh man,
hold on, I can't hear yet. Hold on one second.
I was gonna say I expected Eye of the Tiger to be playing. I expected Sweat to be dripping down, maybe doing some curls there. Red Dog coming in. He's getting ready. He's told us about that. He's coming in ready here. Red Dog, how you doing this morning?
Good. I just got the volume up. Sorry about that.
No, you're all good, man. You're getting me pumped up here, and Lord knows I need it after watching my Bears flounder away another game last night. Hopefully, you had a better Monday night than I did. Let me start off by asking you here about the SPY. I know you've got it up here. We're less than 0.5% from all-time highs. What do you see here? What are the levels? What do you think takes place today?
I'll probably have another inside day. I figured yesterday would be an inside day after the 3-4 day move into Fridays, where they kind of sold the news a little bit or just sold strength into the jobs report. So I was hoping it wouldn't be like breakout failure, that we would get digestion, because there's been a lot of good stock movement. So when the indices kind of digest, you could then play stocks because the market's not bullying it around upside or downside. So I would say for today, if you look here, let's just quickly go to the SPYs. They're up 72 cents. They're kind of non-event, so that's good as long as we hold 647-ish, which, you can go sideways, and then you could play whatever names you have long or short active sequences on. The Qs real quickly. Had a little bit of relative strength yesterday. It's kind of hanging out here. It's it could, even if it were to break 580-ish, there'd be some pressure, but then the 8 days down there wouldn't be such a big deal. So you just got to know how active you want to be. But ultimately, the Qs are good. Yesterday, I was on Spaces, and I was talking about a little bit of a rotation trade, because we caught the rotation trade in the XBI. Some guys did IWM, I didn't. XLE was great. I was like, hey, this XLV, after the move we saw in the XBI, it held the gap here at 136. You could buy some cheap options. Gets above the 200-day. Maybe there's a trade as far as sector money opportunities. Sometimes you get some cheap sector money opportunities, and I think this XLV, and now you have the news on UNH, it'll probably help the sector today.
Okay, real good breakdown there. Let me ask you about the biggest. Well, you know what? Let me take a step back there. You talked a little bit about the inside day there. Are you doing anything to prepare for these big data prints that we're getting Tuesday and Wednesday in the CPI and the PPI, or is this just we'll see what happens and we'll trade whatever hand we're dealt?
No, well, you know what? You go back to the SPYs. I'm in a bunch of stuff. Like if you look here, here's the alpha team. So it's not like I've been doing this for 30 years. I told you I kind of treat my account as like I'm a small portfolio manager, where depending on what's going on, I can handle positions. I can have options around positions, and I don't. If you get flat into every binary event we have now, whether it's a jobs report, whether it's a Trump thing, whether it's a CPI, a PPI, you're never going to be in anything. So if you day trade, that's another thing. Like if you're in the business for 6 months or a year or 2 years, and you want to just net money every day and trade volume filters and this and that, that's cool. But I try and have my go-to list of 40 names and massage things and keep on swing trades depending on how they're going. And right now, I'm just kind of trying to see if I can massage these positions where, again, if we have an inside day in the SPYs and the Qs, the 2 days I could trade my names, and then, we'll see what we do tomorrow, because, so the way I've been kind of like hedging is I sell some premium above, but I'm not going to sell premium above when you can have an outsized move, which could happen tomorrow. So I figured today would be inside. So I have to figure out what I want to hold a little bit, because the PPI is at 830. Instead of selling premium, maybe I buy some puts, because you can't buy the VIX as a hedge. It's just friggin' broken and never works.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that. Holy smokes.
Holy smokes. Yeah. You could be right on the VIX for a day and that's it. And you have to time it perfectly. You might, but anyway, so depending on your risk and your time frame, when you have like an event like the PPI and CPI that's coming out, you also have revisions today. You have to know what you can handle, and and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Speaking of events here, the big thing that people are waiting for seems to be the Apple event. Do you have any levels here on Apple that you're looking for? I know you just showed all of your holdings there. I couldn't quite tell if Apple was on it. Sorry, my eyes might be going a little bit, but let me know what you see here in the chart.
I took off Apple yesterday.
Okay.
Apple's been great.
Perfect.
Like Apple has been horrible, to be honest. Not horrible, but during this, that's what's going on right now in the market. Every month or 2 months is different specific trades. you could not be long Apple from March all the way down to the lows of April. And that's when you wanted to be long like Meta and Microsoft. And then right here, when, August 6th, when Apple ignited, then you were able to be long Apple. You were able to actually Google too. And then Meta and Microsoft became horrible, and Tesla's been a choppy mess. So it's just like you have to pick and choose. And then you had a nice trade in NVIDIA, and now NVIDIA is not there. So it's, as a trader, you have to find the specific action. But for now, what I would like to do, I don't know if it's going to happen. I've been trading Apple for a long time. Apple's only down 16 cents. Typically what they try and do is they always try and sell the event. It's never good enough, never revolutionary. It's just evolutionary, and they sell it down. And then the next day it kind of gaps up and the buyback machine goes on, and usually it's better. So if we're at 237 from 241, if they could push us down to, this gap area, what I might do is I might go out and just buy some calls out a few weeks that are cheaper because it's down, and then see how it reacts a day or so after.
Okay. All right. Really good stuff there on Apple. The next one that I want to talk about is Tesla. I know the last time that we talked to you, you said you bought that for the first time in a while. I guess I'm just wondering if you're still in kind of stay away mode here, or as we really kind of approach that 350 to 360 area, are you looking for maybe another move here in Tesla?
Well, this is when it was awesome. Like, this was, I think, the last time we spoke in May, and it got above this 285-ish and had a big move to 367 above the 8-day fast and furious. And since then, it's been going sideways as their EV business slows, as the whole EV market kind of slows, and they're trying to get a different identity. So I will say yesterday I did lose a little bit of money because I thought it was going to break above this 355, 357, and it didn't. So I didn't buy the shares. I actually bought options, so I bought a little bit more. Maybe it needs a little time to digest from 325, go a little sideways. So, I keep my eyes here. It'd be nice if it could just have like a normal day where it's up a little bit. Right now it's up 238, so that's good. If it could hold and push, I think that it's been going sideways long enough that, that we could get a good upside. I don't want to miss it. That's why I went out and I bought calls for Friday, and we'll see if today's got better traction. It just wasn't ready to break out yesterday.
Okay. Good stuff there, folks. Trade the lead up to and the aftermath of the Fed meeting live with Scott Redler, totally free, September 16th through 19th. I got the link in the chat there. Don't have the QR code on the screen, and we'll be sure to get you that. All right, Scott, actually, the last time that we were together was at the end of August there. One of the things that we had talked about was NVIDIA. That was right before the earnings, and you wanted to see how it played out there. So follow up, got to ask you, what do you think of how it played out, and what are you looking at going forward here, ticker NVDA?
NVIDIA was the money trade in NVIDIA was right around here, right around when it broke above 146, took out 149, 153, and gave you a big move. I don't remember exactly what day. Oh, this was the earnings trade. I didn't take options into it. I just didn't think the setup was there. Had a loose and wide day, and then really just got a little pressured. But it's good to see that the market could ignore NVIDIA. That the narrative's changed. That if NVIDIA is not going up, nothing can go up. It's more like, hey, Avago came out and said, they're going to be selling chips, to whoever needs them. And then Baba says they have a chip that could compete. So all of a sudden, I'd like to see the fact that, NVIDIA came in and the market held in. But for now, when it makes lower lows, the market cares. But when it's just kind of out of play, things could work. So I'd like to see it hold 164. If it can hold 164, go sideways, market's not going to care too much. But if it breaks below that, you could see some pressure come in on tech. That's what you saw on Friday. Right. If you remember, you were seeing some relative weakness in NVIDIA as the market went back to highs. Then we opened up on Friday and NVIDIA broke 167. It kind of brought out sellers, and that's why they sold strength on Friday. So anyway, I am thinking at some point there might be a China deal at some point. Okay. The news that they had on their conference call that there's a few $1 billion waiting to be made by selling chips to China. That could happen at some point. So if you feel like you might miss that, maybe you go out and buy some options a little bit higher, but only do that with money you're willing to burn.
Okay. You talked a little bit about XLV already. Can we take a look at the UNH chart? It does kind of look like that's looking to trade higher here and maybe break out. Maybe you can give us some levels for this.
Yeah. Like I talked about this the other day, guys made good money. I'm like, you guys could be long versus gap here, 294. There was some news like a week ago that got absorbed. I'm like, this thing looks like it's going to at least 324. If not, I wouldn't be surprised if it fills the gap and works towards the 200 days. So this has been a broken bottom trade. Some people are like, hey, Red Dog, how does a new active sequence start? Well, a new active sequence could be started and reborn with a big gap that never gets filled because it shows commitment to the direction of that gap. And that's what we have going on right there with UNH.
Okay, UNH, this actually looks pretty good. I know our group has traded UNH quite a bit, so we'd like to see that perform pretty well. Let me ask you, given yesterday's session, we saw a lot of these really kind of crazy smaller market cap stocks move like crazy. OCTO was the big one yesterday. We've got CWD printing 40s in the pre-market here today, which seems ridiculous. Two questions here. Number one, do you ever take advantage? Do you ever trade any of these things? What can you tell us if you do? And then perhaps on a larger point here, are you worried at all that this is kind of indicative of a near-term market top, the dash for trash?
Well, you don't know if this is actually trash. This is like a new sector. This whole treasury thing for crypto, it's a hot group now. It's kind of like the SPACs. When the SPACs came out, Chamath had 100 of them. The first 10 were awesome. The last 90 were zeros. So right now you have Tom Lee, who thinks he's the man, and Dan Ives coming out, putting together this OCTO. And it was great and sexy yesterday, but a lot of these things have a peak and then they die out and then they build new bases, kind of like BMNR. Look at what BMNR did. It had its big move, went to 160. If you said, oh, it's going to 500, it broke 111 and you probably got stopped out to 30. Then it rebuilds and gets a life, which is looks at what this is trying to do. So, there are a few day moves and then you have to wait for it to settle down. But there are people who make a living. Someone picked this up when it was $20, even on the Alpha team. They're like, hey, look at this. They're doing a treasury for Chainlink and they just made 20 points. They can't take it away if you take it and run. But if you buy 45s and it goes to 28, hey, that's the world you're living in. So I personally don't live in this world that much. Okay. I'd rather be in, mega cap tech, the semis, Palantir, Robinhood, so I trade crypto, the ETFs, the underlying, but every now and then, I bought this BMNR into the 40s and I bought options and I trimmed into it yesterday. So there are technical plays you can make with these type of names, but only when there's a good setup and you feel like you can handle it. And we'll see how it goes. So far, this is pretty, you could have just bought it at 42 and sold it at 50 and made your day. Again, we'll see.
This stock, when I first sat down at my computer and I was watching this move, I was like, stock at 450 here. Maybe we'll take a stab at that. Could have loaded the boat there at 450 and your day, week, maybe even month would have been made. All right, Red Dog, anything else you got on the docket that I maybe didn't cover here?
Well, let's real quickly talk about NBIS. NBIS had to deal with Microsoft. This one, also was a newer name. Look how this was a new name. This came out in 2024. Sometimes new names happen. You put them on your go-to list. You learn how they trade. They get comfortable with them. I remember trading this right around here. We had a good trade, and then it kind of got choppy. Had a good earnings play. I'm not in this, unfortunately, but there are guys that are in it versus 62 because that's the strategy. When you have a big pro earnings gap and it holds, it goes sideways, you could hold a swing. If you're not that active, if you don't trade for a living. I will say sympathy plays. A lot of my guys have been playing IREN, another newer name. It's up a bunch. I don't know if you buy it up here, but it seems pretty good. So just like new names, everyone's like, Red Dog, how do you get new names in your go-to list? Well, this is a newer name. And I have to say, I'm in WULF. And if you look at the chart here, just look at the chart. It's holding 860. It looks pretty good. Then someone in my alpha team who you could be a member of for free next week and watch is like, Red Dog, look at the weekly chart of WULF. So look at the weekly chart. The weekly chart looks pretty damn good.
Sure does.
It just broke out. It's got a bull flag. Why can't this see 14? I'm not even saying 25 or 43, but this is AI. Google has a stake in them. There could be, and be another few deals out there. So, I'm going to do a little bit more homework on this and try and keep some and maybe buy some options because, again, some of these names, have more of a life than just a trade.
Okay. Real good stuff. As always, Red Dog, you never disappoint. We appreciate that. Trade the lead up to and the aftermath of the Fed meeting live with Scott Redler, totally free. That spends time joining us here. That's September 16th through 19th. I'll go ahead and throw the link in the chat. Red Dog, have yourself a great Tuesday and rest of the week. We'll catch up with you next time. Stay green, buddy.
You as well. By the way, one of your guys, wanted to correct me, so I like to be corrected. It's not NVDA, it's NVIDIA. So if you want to say and look like you're smart, it's NVIDIA, not NVIDIA. So thank you, buddy. I appreciate that.
We appreciate that.
Trying to make me look good. I get it.
Yeah, it is awesome. Red Dog, thanks very much for everything. We'll catch you next time. All right. Have a good one.